My name is Luke Morgan. I'm going to be talking about deaf representation in the film A Silent Voice. So the first thing you should know about this movie, it is a Japanese anime originally released in Japan, but it got very popular worldwide, and it was certainly my first exposure to a central deaf character. A quick movie synopsis would be the deaf girl Shoko suffers extreme bullying in elementary school, led by a boy named Shoya. While the whole class participates in the bullying, Shoya does end up getting scapegoated for this, leading to great depression in him as a result of his guilt and isolation. And then later in the movie, Shoya apologizes to Shoko for his actions in the past, which sparks the beginning of a sort of teen love situation. The portrayal of deafness in this movie that is sort of goes along with our textbook is that the first thing I would say is Shoko is deaf according to idea, not just hearing impaired, because she cannot receive a good education just from auditory. Traditional means she needs visual support. Her peers were taught sign language as a way to help her, which is something that the textbook recommends. And also, Shoko was taught in a traditional classroom as opposed to a specialized classroom, which is the textbook says is better for to help deaf kids learn overall. The portrayal of deafness in this movie that diverged from our textbook is that Shoko actually engages in more social play than most kids. That's a big reason why Shoya is afraid of her, because he doesn't understand why this sweet young girl is trying to be his friend so much, and I think it freaks him out and plays into his own insecurities. Um, and also later in the movie, we learn that Shoko's educational achievement is actually significantly above average, whereas the textbook states that deaf children typically tend to have a little bit of educational achievement deficit. In terms of psychological stigma, that this movie played into some of the bad stereotypes around people with disability. The first big one is in the Logmore reading. It says disability has often been used as a melodramatic device. I mean, there's really no getting around that one. The whole movie is about Shoko's deafness and about how that negatively impacts her, and it's absolutely used as a melodramatic device. When I was watching it, I definitely got the intention that we're supposed to feel pity for Shoko, and pity oppresses, as stated by the Hayes and Black reading. A lot of characters in the movie talk about how Shoko's like such an amazing person, and we don't understand how she can be so positive all the time despite being deaf, which plays into this superhuman device that gets used in media. And then finally, towards the end of the movie, Shoko does attempt suicide. Spoiler and all that. She does live, but it plays into this idea that disabled characters choose death themselves as a way to release from their insufferable existence, which can be very psychologically stigmatizing when showing to a large group of people. In terms of individual reactions of watching this movie, I think deaf people and non-deaf people thinking about deaf people would actually have a pretty positive imagination and positive takeaway from this movie, especially compared to other media. The reason I say it is because the Hayes and Black reading says that disabled people can't show depression, anger, sorrow, or sexuality typically, because that makes people uncomfortable. And all of those things are exhibited in this movie, even apart from the suicide attempt. Shoko is pictured depressed and sorrow about her deafness. She gets angry and frustrated about some things that don't go her way due to her deafness. And then she is like it is a love movie. So Shoko is absolutely sexualized and romanticized. Not like sexualized a ton. It's not like a sexual movie, just to be clear. But she's a romantic character. I would say the movie definitely builds empathy and sympathy for the deaf and really humanizes the deaf experience in a way that I personally had never been exposed to before seeing this movie. So I'd have to say overall it does have a positive impact on the people despite falling into some really common psychological stigmas that I wish it didn't, and it probably could have easily avoided. Overall, this learning experience was a lot of fun for me. I got to rewatch this movie that I really loved. It was hard for me to accept at first that this movie fell into some maladaptive stereotypes, but it does come from a different culture than ours, so that's something to remember. And also, yeah, um, some big takeaways for me personally about being a teacher is that if I have deaf students, I need to teach the whole class sign language to help them fit in. And I need to try to keep them in my main class because both of those things will contribute positively to their learning and their overall well being. Here is my references slide. Thank you for watching.